one or two sentences.
Great.
Yes.
Very nice.
झाली नाही अजून सुरू?
चालू आहे ना. लोक जॉईन करतात, त्यांनी अजून प्रोसेस चालू नाही केली.
Do you know, Natesh? Few years back, a remark was passed.
Great. 2 years back.
A remark was passed that botany घेऊन माझ्या आयुष्यातली 5 वर्ष वाया गेली.
त्यांनी अजून प्रोसेस चालू नाही केली.
नाही आम्ही गप्पा
You know,
Natesh.
Yeah.
2 years back, a remark.
Yeah. 2 years back.
Few years back, somebody very important personality commented that by studying botany, I have wasted 5 years of my life.
Oh.
Ah.
I think some of us have wasted our entire life.
5 years I have wasted from my life. And your classmate Madhav Pense immediately reacted with the same. I don't think so. I also don't think so. This lecture will be a positive response for this statement. Isn't it? Hello. उशीर झालाय का?
ये लोग जॉईन होईल.
कोण बोलते?
महेश शिंदीकर सर.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
आपण कार्यक्रम सुरू करूया का?
आता कार्यक्रम सुरू करूया.
शिंदीकर सर.
हो 6 वाजलेत सर, सुरू करूया.
ठीक आहे. येस.
मी युट्यूब लाईव्ह केलेलं आहे. सो आपण कार्यक्रमाला सुरुवात करूया. मी जस्ट स्क्रीन शेअर करते.
काय करते?
स्क्रीन शेअर करते. ते स्क्रीनवर जे दाखवणार ना ते सगळ्यांना दिसेल. मेरे को भी अभी बहुत दिन यूज नहीं किया मैडम जूम. अराउंड 1 साल से ज्यादा हो गए.
महाराष्ट्र बुक से संबंधित. बंद करा. कोण आहे तो?
अजित.
काय म्हणतो?
हॅलो,
दिसतंय सगळ्यांना?
हो.
अच्छा.
हो, दिसतंय.
गुड इव्हिनिंग.
फक्त ओपन करा बाईंच्या वेळेला.
सगळ्यांना विनंती आहे की आपापले माईक म्यूट ठेवा आणि आपापले व्हिडिओ पण प्लीज बंद ठेवा. आपण कार्यक्रमाला सुरुवात करतोय. On behalf of Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhini, I welcome you all for Dr. V.D. Vartak Memorial Lecture. I welcome today's speaker, respected Dr. Natesh sir, Dr. Hema Sane madam, and all distinguished guests. Before moving ahead, I would like to update you on our upcoming events. Our this year's theme for monthly lecture is Grasslands of the World. On 24th April, we will have a lecture by Shri Subhash Badve sir on grasses of India. On 29th, we are having lecture on philately, amphibians on stamps by Professor Indranil Das from Malaysia. And we have planned Bakkam Chanda Varga in May. For details, you may contact us on missiondevrai@gmail.com. With this brief welcome, I will hand over the mic to Dr. Mahesh Shindikar sir. Over to Shindikar sir.
Yes, धन्यवाद मॅडम.
एक मिनिट हा मी स्क्रीन थांबवते.
Okay, so I'll take this privilege on this evening to speak in both the languages, Marathi and English, mixed language as it is happening everywhere nowadays. For the convenience of audience as well as the key speaker for today's great session that we have organized in the memory of Professor Vaman Dattatray Vartak sir, who is a legendary figure, who is a man for plants. The entire life he has spent with plants and with his hobbies like collection of stamps, collection of various other elements, which will take.
हे व्हिडिओ जरा ऑन करता का शिंदीकर सर?
Yes, so I think I am audible and visible to everyone now. Yes, thank you, Professor. And this is a great honor for a person like me to introduce a legendary person in the fields of botany, to be more precise, the person who has taken this entire domain of science to the people and made it very popular in public domain. Professor Vartak, born in Bhor Taluk of Maharashtra in Pune district, has tremendous attraction for nature and, to be more precise, for the plants. He got graduated from another great institute, Ferguson College, Pune, and immediately he joined there as a demonstrator. From therein, he entered into a field of teaching where he could not invest much of his time in research, and subsequently he has joined Maharashtra Association for Cultivation of Science, MACS, now Agharkar Research Institute. And for more than 3 decades, he worked genuinely in the fields, or to be more precise, in various fields related to botany. As I said, his intention was in the beginning to carry out a very basic formative research in the fields of taxonomy, where he has noted down list of plants, identification, making herbarium. But very important thing that he has done during his entire tenure is to make and generate a school of students who will work on identification and related topics on plants. MACS that time has intentionally started with economic botany, which is very basic need for that time. But subsequently, Professor Vartak and his students could establish a very important discipline of identification and classification in Agharkar Research Institute. A series of students and varied topics has helped him to find out and explore not only the district of Pune, but majority of the Maharashtra section. And his priority to have the basic field visits, collection of plants, identification, with great sense of humor, with great knowledge in the field, with all possible minor things that he has observed, and he made his students to make observations. He could establish a very diverse field of experiments, which will vary from somewhere a basic taxonomy, somewhere economic botany, somewhere medicinal plants, somewhere very significant families that he has explored. But very, we can say, a turning point he has received when he has pioneered the work on sacred grooves, the plants which were kept, or type of forest which was kept in situ, preserved on local beliefs. With this information, for the first time, he and his co-workers have come out with tremendous knowledge, which was made open to the entire community. All such very important initiatives that he has started with are now giving us fruits and seeds, which are sown at different corners, not only in the state, but across the country. Now, the herbarium that is well maintained in Agharkar Research Institute, the kind of work that is submitted through this institute, right from fossils up to the economic botany on the other side. We are very happy to have a session in the era where what to choose becomes a very important issue for all the new beginners. And the very first question that students ask to teachers of this generation is, what I will gain? What kind of job that can be offered with such training in the field of botany? I think Professor Natesh is with us today, and he's planning to throw light on what are the different corridors that are open for all of us as a beginner, as a student, as a researcher in the field of botany. Professor Vartak, who has been awarded with many such awards, and one of the very important things that he has made is popularization of the field of plant identification in the local domain. Series of PhD theses that students have submitted under his guidance, his photography, his enormous collection of herbarium, fossils, shells, and postal stamps has been a constant source of inspiration for many young students. He has done not only the contribution in terms of research, but also making this research readily available.
Hello, शेख मैडम, प्लीज हाँ वो अनम्यूट करो. म्यूट हाँ करो.
महेश सर तुम्ही म्यूट झालाय.
Yes.
हा त्यात शेख मॅडमचा हे झाला ना कारण.
Now see, he is with us, his memories are with us through his students, through a number of publications that he owns, through series of write-ups that he has, and we are fortunate enough to have many of his students are with us, sitting at our workplace or at home. And I had to specially mention Dr. Hima Sane. She has joined this meeting from her own micro habitat in the highly civilized area of Pune city. But I welcome each one of you for this meeting. And with this brief, I would now request Professor Natesh to have inauguration of the book that is written by Professor Sane Madam, Dr. Vartak sir, and whatever very important topics that have come out of this work in Marathi. It is about masale, about spices and condiments. We are going to inaugurate right now. So I request Professor Natesh to have story of condiments, spices and condiments in Marathi, Kahani Masalyanchi. Ajit Vartak sir, Kaustub sir, आणि डॉक्टर हेमा साने या लेखक त्रयींनी हे आज पुस्तक आपल्या सगळ्यांना सादर केलेलं आहे. अर्थात हे पुस्तक अतिशय रोचक माहिती घेऊन आपल्या सगळ्यांपुढे येत आहे. या सगळ्या मसाल्यांना एक प्रत्येक पदार्थाला एक एक कहाणी आहे आणि ही कहाणी आपल्या बोलीभाषेत जे वर्तक सरांचं नेहमीच स्वप्न राहिलेलं आहे या बोलीभाषेत आपल्यापर्यंत पोहोचवण्याचं अतिशय महत्वाचं कार्य यांनी केलंय. मी प्राध्यापक नटेश सरांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी या इलेक्ट्रॉनिक माध्यमातून या पुस्तकाचं अनावरण केल्याचं जाहीर करावं.
सर मी ही स्लाइड दाखवतीये. आता मी स्लाइड बंद करते आणि मग
बरोबर.
नटेश सरांना त्यांचा स्क्रीन
हो.
मोठा करायचा.
हो बरं.
आय थिंक कार्यक्रम झाल्यावर आपण परत एकदा ही स्लाइड
हो,
दाखवू.
शेवटी बरं.
Thank you. Here is this book. This is the book that has been written. I wish I could.
सर थोड़ा मागे थोड़ा पीछे रखिए. इट्स टू क्लोज. हाँ या और थोड़ा पीछे. यस थैंक यू.
Okay now?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
येस. आपण सगळ्यांनी आपापल्याच घरातनं टाळ्या वाजवून साने मॅडमचं अभिनंदन करूया. एंड थैंक यू नटेश सर, आपने ये बुक का इनॉग्रेशन किया है. थैंक्स अ लॉट.
Now, I would like to request on behalf of all the writers, Professor Hema Sani would speak a few words about this publication and in general her memories about Professor Vartak. Dr. Hema Sani.
धन्यवाद महेश शिंदे. सर्वप्रथम मी वर्तक सरांना श्रद्धांजली वाहू इच्छिते. आता महेशनी पुष्कळ गोष्टी वर्तक सरांच्या रिसर्च बद्दल आणि इतर लेखनाबद्दल सांगितल्या, पण मी असं म्हणेन सरांचं सगळ्यात मोठं योगदान जर काय असेल तर 4 भिंतीच्या प्रयोगशाळेत असलेल्या बॉटनीला त्यांनी बिनभिंतीच्या शाळेत आणलं. 1984 साली त्यांनी एक उपक्रम सुरू केला की दर महिन्याच्या शेवटच्या रविवारी एका बागेतल्या वृक्षांचा परिचय सर्वसामान्यांना करून द्यायचा. आज पुण्यात जेवढे कोणी निसर्गप्रेमी संघ चालत असतील त्या सगळ्यांचा पाया वर्तक सरांनी 84 साली घातलेला आहे आणि या सर्वांनी मी सुद्धा त्याच्यात आले. आपण वर्तक सरांचं याबद्दल कायमचं ऋणी राहायला हवं. आता या पुस्तकाबद्दल कहाणी मसाल्यांची याचा मागोवा घेतला तर असं मला लक्षात येत आहे की मी सृष्टीज्ञान मासिकासाठी क्रांतिकारी वनस्पती अशी एक लेखमाला सुरू केली होती. मग लक्षात आलं की मसाल्याचे पदार्थ फारच क्रांतिकारी आहेत. ते नुसते आपल्या जेवणाला चव आणतात अशातला भाग नाही. आपली भोजन यात्रा आनंदाची करतात, पण त्याच्याच बरोबर ते इतिहासाचे आणि भूगोलातले अदृश्य नायक आहेत. मसाला हा शब्दच मुळात फारसी आहे. इसाला म्हणजे द वन हू चेंजेस द टेस्ट. मसाला हे त्याचं प्लुरल, अनेक वचन. मसाल्याचे पदार्थ हे पूर्वी स्वयंपाकघरात नव्हते. ते फक्त जंतुनाशक आणि सुगंधी द्रव्य यासाठीच वापरले जात होते. त्यांची माहिती वाचताना असं लक्षात आलं की याच्यात खजिनाच आहे. उदाहरणार्थ मिरी हे चलन म्हणून वापरलं जात होतं. इजिप्तचे पिरॅमिड बांधताना त्या कामगारांना खायला कांदा देत होते उष्माघात होऊ नये म्हणून. त्याच्यासाठी त्या काळी 3 टन सोनं त्यांना विकावं लागलं कांदे खरेदीसाठी. एका डच ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनीच्या ऑफिसरला हे माहित नव्हतं की जायफळ आणि जायपत्री एकाच झाडाचे दोन्ही पदार्थ मिळतात. त्यांनी असा हुकूम सोडला, जायफळाची झाडं तोडून टाका आणि त्याच्याऐवजी जायपत्रीची झाडं लावा. आणि अशा अनेक गोष्टी त्यातनं सापडल्या. मग लक्षात आलं की मसाल्याच्या पदार्थांच्या शोधासाठीच कोलंबोस निघाला. त्याची दिशा चुकली आणि तो अमेरिकेला जाऊन पोचला. एका नव्या खंडाचा शोध लागला. नंतर इतर समुद्र मार्गाने अनेक दर्यासारंग आग्नेय आशियाकडे आले. वास्को ड गामा त्यातला पहिला. आणि तेव्हापासून इथे सगळ्या युरोपियन राष्ट्रांनी आपापल्या वखारी स्थापन केल्या आणि तिथनं पुढे वसाहतवादाचा जन्म झाला. आणि ते जवळजवळ 150 वर्षापर्यंत आपलं तसंच चालू होतं. ते हे सगळं जे झालं ते अतिशय वेगाने झालं. या सगळ्याचा इतिहास आपल्याला इथे मांडायचा होता. म्हणून मी, अजित वर्तक, आणखी कौस्तुभ मुद्गल या तिघांनी हा उपद्व्याप केला. त्याच्यात अजितला अतिशय हौसच कुठल्याही प्रकारचे पोस्टल स्टॅम्प गोळा करायची, त्यामुळे त्यांनी ताबडतोब हे काम स्वीकारलं. कौस्तुभनी या सगळ्याला एक छानपैकी आकार दिला आणि अखेर एक पुस्तक तयार झालेलं आहे. तर अशी पुस्तकाची कहाणी. आता नटेश आणि मी याचा संबंध 1968 सालापासून आहे. त्यावेळेला ते गरवारेमध्ये शिकायला होते आणि तो आमचा संपर्क आजही चालू असतो. आठवड्यातनं एकदा तरी त्यांची माझी गप्पा होतात. मी आता त्याला सांगत होते की तुमचा आजचा विषय फारच मजेदार आहे, की ह्याच्यात धडाडीने काय करता येईल. एंटरप्रेन्युअरशिप फॉर बॉटनी, ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज, लिमिटेशन्स वगैरे वगैरे. तर हे सगळं जे आहे ते आजच्या घडीला अतिशय महत्वाचं अशासाठी आहे की काही वर्षापूर्वी एका विख्यात माणसाने असं सांगितलं की बॉटनी शिकण्यात मी आयुष्यातली 5 वर्ष वाया घालवलेली आहे. आणि मग त्याची अनेकांनी ओढायला सुरुवात केली की बॉटनी कशाला घ्या, ती घेऊन काय खड्ड्यात जायचंय का वगैरे. आता नटेशचं करिअर जर बघितलं तर तुम्हाला असं लक्षात येईल की ह्यांनी बॉटनीतच सगळं आपलं आयुष्यभर काम केलेली आहे. पुन्हा जरी त्याची शिक्षणाची गंगोत्री होती तरी त्याची कर्मभूमी मात्र दिल्ली होती. आणि तेव्हापासून त्याचा बॉटनीचा प्रवास आज तगायत सुरू आहे. तेव्हा बॉटनी हा खड्ड्यात जाण्याचा विषय नाही, हे मला नक्की त्याच्यासारखे सांगण्याची मला अगदी पूर्णपणे संधी आज मिळाली आहे. तेव्हा मी नटेशला आता माझा मी संपवते बोलणं आणि पुढचा कार्यक्रम आपण सुरू करूया.
Ajit sir.
Now I'll introduce today's guest speaker, Professor Natesh. It is a great honor for me to introduce today's guest speaker, Professor S. Natesh, eminent plant scientist of our country. Natesh sir did his graduation from Garware College, Pune.
Sir, तुमचा व्हिडिओ जरा ऑन करा ना प्लीज.
Video आहे खरं on. Professor Natesh did his graduation from Garware College, Pune. After topping the MSc degree at the Savitribai Phule Pune University, Dr. Natesh shifted to the University of Delhi to obtain PhD in botany. He taught at the University of Delhi for over 9 years before moving to Government of India in 1984. Dr. S. Natesh worked in the Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology for nearly 3 decades, superannuating in 2012 at the level of Scientist H. At DBT, he headed several divisions, including bioresources, medicinal and aromatic plants, environmental biotechnology, food biotechnology, aquaculture and marine biotechnology, and biotechnology for societal development. He was also the first member secretary of the National Bioresources Development Board. He headed the International Collaboration Division for nearly 8 years and was also the editor of DBT's bi-monthly newsletter, Biotech News. Through his leadership, a number of new and novel programs were successfully launched in the areas of bioresources, human resource development, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Few examples in the area of plant sciences include quantitative estimates of the plant resources of the Western and Eastern Ghats, gene banks for conservation of medicinal and aromatic plants. Dr. Natesh also launched and led the campaign to bring overseas Indian bioscientists back to India through the Ramalinga Swamy Re-Entry Fellowship Program. More than 300 scientists have returned to India through this program. After superannuation, Dr. Natesh has redirected his attention towards botany. His current interests include tracking and mapping of the heritage trees of India and plants that influence history. His work on heritage trees over the past 9 years has resulted in a book currently under publication by Rowley Books. Dr. Natesh has traveled widely and has led several biotech delegations abroad. He continues to serve on the advisory boards of several institutions, agencies, and ministries. Dr. Natesh received the Biospectrum Lifetime Achievement Award in 2012 for his contribution towards taking the Indian biosciences sector to new heights. A new plant species, Aponogeton nateshi, has been named in his honor. With this short introduction, now I request Professor Natesh sir to deliver his talk. Natesh sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ajit, for that very kind introduction. First of all, let me express how greatly honored I feel to have been asked to deliver this 22nd Professor V.D. Vartak Memorial Lecture. I'm sure many big peoples must have delivered this lecture on several occasions before, and it's a signal honor to have been asked to join that pantheon of people who did a great job of that. The second reason to be very happy is that I will say something about Professor Vartak in a minute. The second reason I'm extremely happy about is because Professor Dr. Hema Sane is present today, listening to this talk live. And as far as I know, this must be her first such Zoom talk, which she's attending in person. And it's a great honor. Of course, that shows her respectful feelings towards Professor Vartak. And I would also like to think that it shows her great affection for me. And I have always said this before in this forum and several other forums, that she is perhaps one of the most important reasons for me to enter the field of botany. And I'm very greatly honored that she is present among the audience today. Thirdly, I see a lot of my friends, former fellows of my student days. I could see Dr. Madhav Pense, Professor Kanikar, Dr. Vinaya Ghate, and many others, several other dignitaries whose name would be too many to take in this forum. I'm grateful to all of you for your interest shown here, of course, and I'm very happy to see all of you. My only regret is that I cannot deliver this lecture in person. Zoom talks are all right technologically, but you can't see your audience in the eye. And therefore, half that joy of talking is actually robbed from you. And I'm sure any good audience should also feel that, they can't actually physically interact with the speaker. So, but for that, I'm extremely happy to be doing this. I personally had I had not met Professor Vartak for a very long time. At least as long as I was in Pune, I had never met him. He once came to Delhi University when I was still doing PhD and gave a wonderful talk on the flora of the Western Ghats. And I remember that the whole audience was so enthralled by the quality of his slides and the erudition and the feeling of, the authority of knowledge of Professor V.D. Vartak about the flora of the Western Ghats. He mentioned about the sacred groves and so on. And that was the only one occasion when I listened to him personally. In one sense, I would like to say that I could be, or I should consider myself one of his grand students, because he was the teacher of my guru, Dr. Hema Sane, and therefore I am his grand student in that sense. So thank you very much for asking me to speak here. And he was, of course, a great legend, as you have just heard. He was an outstanding taxonomist and field botanist, and especially his work on sacred groves is very highly respected across the country and across the world. And his interest in photography and philately, I'm sure part of that his family has actually inherited, including Ajit's love for philately, I'm sure. And more than anything else, he created a whole school of people and gave so much mentorship to all the people there in Pune and nearby areas. And thank you very much once again. Now, when Ajit asked me to deliver this topic, I thought hard on what I should speak on such an occasion when it is Professor Vartak Memorial Lecture. Should I speak on something about plant bioresources themselves, conservation of bioresources, or medicinal plants, or heritage trees, or something? Then it occurred to me that Professor Vartak should not be viewed as a very narrow botanist. During his time, the term bioresources was not coined. It came much later through, Edward Wilson and so on. And but he worked on bioresources. And as Dr. Madam Sane mentioned just now, many people do not think that botany has any great potential as a subject in which you should indulge your time. It has no future. In fact, I must narrate a small example. Somebody in the Pune University had invited me, this is about 25 years ago, to give a talk in some conference by the botany department. And as usual on these occasions, a PhD student came to pick me up at the airport. And while we were going back to the university, I asked him, what are you doing? How is your work? What are you working on? So this boy told me, I've forgotten his name. ठीक नहीं चल रहा है. I said, क्यों भाई? किस्मत खराब थी सर, हमने बॉटनी ले लिया. बॉटनी लेने से किस्मत कैसे खराब हुआ? क्यों खराब हुआ? क्या लेना चाहते हो? सर, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी. These are all names. Botany, biotechnology, bioresources, it's all nomenclature. It's not some very famous. Once said, Indian is not a person who opens a funny door. A person who opens the door in a funny way. So it's not what you do, but how you do it, whether it is botany or zoology or, engineering or, artificial intelligence or whatever. So one of the things that I feel is that the teaching and learning of botany, the joy has gone out of our classrooms. And I think one of the things to revive it is to also tell our students how exciting things are in this area, why we should take what we take, why we should learn what we should learn. And not everything need to have an application immediately, but the whole joy of doing it, the whole process of enjoying that thing that you're doing is much more important than exactly what you're doing. So without wasting more time on any more introduction, let me share my slides with you. So let me put this slides on. Okay. Did you get it on the full screen now?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
So I thought that, instead of simply speaking on what Professor Vartak did, or taxonomy or something about which anyway I'm not an expert, I thought let me to talk about entrepreneurial botany, or in simple terms, how to make money with plant bioresources. And in doing so, I thought I would outline what are the opportunities in India, what are India's strengths, what are the barriers to success, and what is the outlook for such an enterprise. And basically, before we start off, let's just examine what exactly is an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is a person, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is a person who undertakes an enterprise or business with a chance of profit or loss. Of course, you can make a loss, you can make a profit. A botanical entrepreneur makes or loses money by starting or running businesses based on plant bioresources for a healthy, sustainable, and environmentally safe future. Of course, in doing so, converting these opportunities into results will require imaginative and robust combination of several factors. And through this talk, I hope to highlight, as I already said, the opportunities and strengths and barriers to success and the outlook. Now, it is not my case to tell everyone in the audience that every person who studies botany should become an entrepreneur. Many of us are very happy to be in a salaried job. And you might ask me, what is my special eligibility to give such a talk? For over nearly 30 years, I worked in an organization which has helped nurture entrepreneurships in all areas of biological sciences, namely the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, including in the botanical and plant sciences area. And therefore, I have helped several entrepreneurs in developing businesses, although I am personally not an entrepreneur myself. I'm happy to be in a university or in a teaching job or a research job. So many of us are happy to be on the left side of this slide, teaching research in universities or other academic institutions. But there are quite a few others, and this number is increasing these days, who want to be self-employed, and they may like to, begin a startup. And their startup companies could produce a product. They could produce either a process or a technology, or they could provide some kind of a service. And these services could include patent service. For example, there will be increasing litigations on products and processes and environmental laws and so on. Therefore, you could become, after studying botany, you could specialize in law, patent law, or environmental law, or legal procedures to defend or, take people to court to do things. You could also provide services in skill development, or you could become a clinical research organization, or you can provide other bio-IT services. These are just examples that I'm just giving here. Now, this area actually of entrepreneurial botany is a convergence of several disciplines. It's a bit like taxonomy. A good entrepreneur has to be good in his own subject, of course, but he should have some nodding acquaintance with things like ethics, law, business management, finance, and many other areas like engineering, computer science, and physics, depending upon what area of botany he wants to be an entrepreneur in. So also, This area uses a variety of platform technologies. Now, what is a platform technology? It's a technology used as a base for other technologies or applications or processes. For example, artificial intelligence, big data, bioimaging, bioprocessing, enzyme-based approaches, fermentation technology, plant tissue, cell and organ culture, and so many others, which I can't list all of them here. The area of plant bioresources influences many aspects of our life, some of which I have listed in this slide. It could be in the area of agriculture. For example, you may start working on basic things, including designer crops. There are other well-known areas such as biopesticides, biofertilizers, biofuels, and so on. It could also influence livestock, husbandry. You can make better feed for our livestock animals. You could make plant-based veterinary vaccines. The other area would be human health. You know that there are attempts to make plant-based vaccines for several of our diseases, plant-based drugs and nutrition. It could also be, production of biomass-based products such as ethanol, aromatic chemicals, intermediates through secondary metabolism, and so on and so forth. Also, in the area of environmental safety, bioremediation, in vitro-based afforestation, enzymes, and so on and so forth. Of course, in this small lecture or short lecture, I won't be able to give you examples from every one of these. I will leave out those which are more commonly known. And I'll concentrate on some areas which I think are developing, have greater potential. Now, who exactly supports this in India? The whole area of botanical entrepreneurship, the basic ministry that supports it is the Ministry of Science and Technology, and you have the CSIR, the Department of Biotechnology, the Department of Science and Technology. These have so many institutions, and they also have several schemes, especially DBT and DST, who support entrepreneurship in a number of ways. Then there is the Ministry of Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy, popularly called Ayush. And they have their central councils in each of these. And there is also the Medicinal Plant Board, but they don't do very high technologies, but basic technologies, cultivations, small processing at the cottage level. Those are funded by these people. Then there is the Ministry of Agriculture through a whole series of ICR institutes, and also some of the state agriculture universities. Then the Department of Atomic Energy has the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, National Center for Biological Sciences, and so on. And in the Ministry of Human Resource Development, you have many public and private universities, mostly public universities, I must say, publicly funded universities. There are only very few private universities who are now beginning to do innovative research in these areas. Of course, there is the Indian Institute of Science. There are several IITs. And these days, so many ICERs, including the one in your own city, are encouraging work in some of these areas. There are, barring the government, there are other players. Of course, there is the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Small, Medium, and other sector industries. Big industry sponsors its own research. There are several NGOs. And these days, there are several film stars and other VIPs who have started taking interest in sustainable plant-based entrepreneurships. And I'll give you some examples as we go by. I don't have to remind you that the world population is growing constantly. And in fact, it hit the figure of 8 billion on 15th November of 2022, 4 years earlier, 3 or 4 years earlier than we thought. It will be 8.5 billion by 2030 and 9.7 billion by 2050. However, the pace of growth is going down, but the number of persons is increasing. Already, 1 in 6 people goes hungry. Food production, therefore, must increase by 70 to 100% to feed all these people. There is no single solution to tackle this problem. Conventional agriculture is not going to help. Therefore, we need new technologies that can increase efficiencies by tailoring existing crops to meet new requirements, or reducing time and cost to improve local crop varieties that are already available. One of the technologies that has been used world over, but has not found very great favor in India, is the genetic modification of crops, or GM crops, or genetically modified crops, as we call them. And in India, we already have only one crop, and that is BT cotton. And in 2019, the world had something like 190.4 million hectares under GM crops. Basically, all these are happening in the developing countries. Out of 29 countries that grow GM crops, 24 are developing, and only 5 countries are industrial. This should tell you something about how much importance GM crops have been given in the developing world. And the 5 countries, that is USA, Brazil, Argentina, Canada, and India, together account for 91% of all the GM crops. And which are these GM crops? Basically, the major ones are soybeans, maize, cotton, and canola. The market for GM crops was expected to be 21.08 billion in 2022. The figures are still coming in. And it is expected to reach 22.29 billion in 2023. In India today, we have about 12.5 million hectares under only one crop, that is BT cotton. And the GM crops market in India in 2021 was worth 5.23 billion. And it is expected to be over 12 billion by 2026, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 18.2%, which means we are something like 3 times faster growing than the rest of the world in terms of the expected production of this GM crop in India, irrespective of the disfavor it has, or not releasing other crops. BT cotton accounts, only BT cotton accounts for this figure. In fact, India has this 5th place after USA, Brazil, Argentina, and Canada. And this is an old figure I mentioned, 12.5 million today. And we tried, or India tried, to introduce BT brinjal, but although the committee cleared it for commercial cultivation in 2009, the Ministry of Environment and Forest then placed it under a moratorium. All of you know this, in 2010. Thereafter, there is one more crop, which is a GM mustard hybrid, DMH11, which has been cleared for commercial cultivation about 2016, 6-7 years ago. But this is, although the ministry has recently cleared it, it is not permitted to be cultivated commercially because the matter still is in the court. Therefore, barring cotton, we don't have anything in the field. But there is a whole pipeline of GM crops that are at various stages of approval. I don't know what is going to happen to these crops. We must take a view whether we want GM crops in this country or we don't want GM crops in the country. And if we don't want them, if that is the consensus, then I think we should stop investing in this area are doing research in this area. Because once you commit to this, you are committed for 12 years or 15 years until your crop is released. And if I were a state who is investing in this area, I would think at least 100 times before I invest money today, because there is so much uncertainty in being an entrepreneur in this area. However, India has a lot of expertise in the whole area of crop genomics. I give you just a few examples. First, we did a part of a chromosome in rice. Then we did a whole chromosome of tomato. And then we did a whole chromosome of wheat. And this whole chromosome of wheat was larger than the genomic size of this was larger than the entire tomato genome. So thereafter, we have expertise and experience. We have wetted our hands on a number of crops. I don't want to read out all this. So there is enough expertise here to provide services, genomic services to people. So that is another area of enterprise that those of you who are interested in genomics could undertake. There are, however, as I said, GM technology is not very popular in India yet. There is resistance that is happening, but there are now newer technologies that are available. Some of them are not classified as GM, or at least parts of some of these are not classified as GM. And hopefully one can get your crop across to the market faster, cheaper, and more efficiently. And I'm sure all of you have heard these days, because this has become so common in the newspapers to report all this now, this technology called CRISPR-Cas technology. There are other technologies such as talons and zinc finger nucleases. I don't want to get into too much of technicalities here, considering the audience. I'm sure you can get information, those who are interested in this, separately on this. One can make marker-assisted selection, which is not a GM technology. Therefore, you can make crops, newer varieties of crops using genetic markers. You can also do precision agriculture, that is using computer technology, which is located in the cloud. You can decide how much area in your field today you can predict and supply fertilizers, water, and other kinds of inputs using space and communication technology. And this is called precision and smart farming, or something like this. Today, there is also a big movement to use big data. You know, there is so much data that has accumulated in agriculture, plant sciences, bioresources. You know, it's not possible for any one person to collect all that data, classify the data, give it, you know, useful information to you as and when you require it. Therefore, there is this new thing called big data management using, you know, very high speed computers, so that you can get minute to minute, second to second online information on agricultural inputs, outputs, predictions about diseases, and many other things that you could do. So if you want to be an entrepreneur in these areas, these are very growing sunrise areas as well. The government of India has already released guidelines for some of these new technologies, and hopefully they won't get stuck like the GM technologies in India. Now, the world's largest ever vertical farm opened in Dubai in July 2022. Now, all of you must have seen that today vertical gardens have become very popular. At least in Delhi, it has been used across in all the streets, highways, and you know, in public places. One can use this to grow useful crops such as salads or vegetables and many other things using hydroponics and so on. You can use LED lights carefully measured cocktail of nutrients, and grow plants without soil or sunlight. In fact, the largest of these is in Dubai now, as I mentioned just now, and it can produce something like 2 million pounds of lettuce and other salad greens and spinach and so on. This is a joint venture between Emirates Flight and a company called Crop One Holdings. And most of the salads and other things served on Emirates flights these days are actually grown in their own world-class vertical gardens, where you have sterile environment. They don't use any pesticides or herbicides or chemicals, and they are ready to eat. No need even to wash them. And this is so big that it is something like, it's the size of a 3-square city block. Till now, another company was in Pennsylvania, which was the largest in the world, but this one in Dubai is now 337,000 square feet in size. Compared to that, we are Bachchas in India. The largest we have has a capacity of 2,000 square feet, and Urban Kisan is the largest company. So here is another opportunity to get into vertical gardening using your ingenuity and skill. And this is a very growing area in India, predicted to be very, very useful, and one can make, hopefully, a lot of money through this. Now, what is the future like in agriculture? What's on the world's menu? Now, it looks like, if you looked at this graph, that by 2050, the demand for food grains will remain more or less similar, but the demand for fruits, vegetables, animal products, etc., will be more spectacular, to the range of 100 to 300%. You can see these, this one here, and this one here. So our eating habits are changing, because people are getting more and more money. They demand more protein, vitamins, and other ingredients, and a balanced food. And therefore, this is another great area to get into now. And food grain productivity, of course, has to rise, by 2 times if we have to attend to this. People are looking at increased calorie intake per day. They're looking for more diversified food, more ethnic foods. And here is another area where botanists can actually contribute through basic research, through breeding research, through other collaborative programs that you could think of. However, agriculture is environmentally not a very friendly thing at all as we practice it today. For example, look at the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that come from food, 26%. 50% of the world's habitable land is done through agriculture. 70% of global freshwater withdrawals are used for agriculture. 78% global ocean and freshwater pollution is caused by agriculture. 94% of mammal biomass is livestock, and 71% of global bird biomass is poultry livestock. Therefore, agriculture is a very energy intensive and environment unfriendly as it is practiced today. So people are now thinking of alternative means of using plants where animals are being used once. So one of the things that people are now doing is to see if they could produce substitutes of meat products using plants instead. Because of this environmental concerns, people have ethical issues and health conscious. They have become very, very health conscious also. People don't like to kill animals. They want protein, deficient consumers want more protein. Many people feel guilty about eating meat, and middle class and urban consumers are increasingly tending towards vegetarianism. And young consumers, including millennials, are leaning towards a vegetarian diets. And you have flexitarian and vegetarians, all of them are now contributing to a larger market for mock meats or meat substitutes in which you use plants instead. And what are the plants that are used? Basically, jackfruit, soybean, pea, coconut oil, vegetable protein extract, beet juice. These are some of the ingredients that have been used in plant-based meat. And according to one report, India's mock meat market is growing at 7.5% compound growth rate. And it's a very healthy growth rate. And therefore, it's a great area to get into right now. And the number of vegetarians is expected to grow even further and fuel the market over the next few years. And government is now producing lots of incentives for the sector. For example, you can have direct foreign investment in this sector. And Indian companies partnering with overseas companies is possible very easily. And taking advantage of many of these things, many products have come out, like, for example, plant-based schema, or sheikh kebab, or burgers, and, and I can list a whole list of those things. And very smartly, many of our film stars have invested in this. For example, this popular cricketer and his wife have invested in a company called Blue Tribe. And this other couple have invested in Imagine Foods. And Alia Bhatt has invested in a company called Fool.com. Therefore, many of these are just examples to tell you how smartly people are investing in these sunrise areas, which are likely to yield great results, and where plants play a very useful role in making sustainable and environmentally safe products and more healthy and nutrient diets in the years to come. There are also similarly products of milk products that are actually substituted through plants. Why is animal-based milk not favored these days? I will show that in the next slide. But right now, let me tell you that beverages extracted from plant proteins, fats, and sugars are blended together. And these are becoming more and more interesting and gaining popularity. I'm sure in all your super bazaars now, Sofit is available, almond milk is available, and many other brands are coming day by day. The market value was estimated at $13.4 billion. And it's predicted to reach $30 billion or $31 billion by 2031. The most popular of these is almond milk, and followed by oats and soy-based milk products. Others include cashew, hemp, rice, coconut, pea, and so many others. However, I must tell you that these plant-based milk products have much less micronutrients and vitamins than in cow milk, for example. And these have to be supplemented in these products in order to make them equivalent to naturally produced cow or buffalo milk. Therefore, the real milk products associations have been protesting that these should not be labeled as milk at all. And therefore, these people are, for example, they're using a subterfuge here. You can see the spelling of milk, M-Y-L-K and not M-I-L-K. So there are nomenclatural issues because they become legal problems. And therefore, currently, you cannot call these as soy milk, for example. That's why they're calling it soy drink here. Or almond, something, almond drink or something like that. Here again, Hollywood actresses and actors are investing money because this is something that is going to yield extremely good results, and it's seen as a sunrise industry. Natalie Portman, for example, or Robert Downey Jr., and there are others who do this. Now, just to give you, I won't take you through the whole slide. I will just tell you the environmental impact of producing cow-based milk versus plant-based milk. Just take carbon emission, for example, per kg of carbon dioxide equivalent. Look at how much carbon dioxide is produced for producing a unit of cow milk. And look at, for example, almond or oat or rice-based or soy-based milk. How much difference is there in carbon emission? Take land use, for example, square kilometers per raising a unit of milk. Look at this for cow and look at this for other plant-based products. Similarly, water uses, for example, how much water has to be used per unit of producing this. Look at cow milk and look at plant-based milk. The least is, of course, soybean-based milk and followed by oat. And even these are half that of a cow milk, compared to plant-based milk. So people who have concerns about environmental safety, and we cannot not be aware of this today, are all shifting towards making plant-based milk as something that's going to substitute, or it may not entirely substitute, but it will supplement in a very big way. The same happens for meat products as well. Everybody may not shift to plant-based meats or plant-based milk, but a substantial portion will be using it. Therefore, even that is a long way in reducing carbon emissions from our planet. So basically, if you look at this, this is all part of climate change, and climate change affects food and farming in a very big way. It affects, for example, or it's sending crop yield southwards, and it is pushing prices northwards. And who are the people who are most vulnerable? It's the tropical regions that are most vulnerable. The most affected being sub-Saharan Africa and South America. You also have 17% of the people in South Asia who will be very largely affected by climate change. And even within these areas, the poor people are the worst affected. Look at Pakistan, for example. 75% of their income is spent on acquiring food. And these days, of course, with their economy having gone down, it has perhaps increased even further. So adaptations are happening, but the pace of progress is very slow. And therefore, botanists now must contribute in a great way towards reducing carbon emission in all these areas. Now, touching another area with which most of you are familiar is the global herbal medicine market. And if you looked at the geographical areas of the world where the markets are very great, Asia Pacific region is number one, followed by Europe, and then North America and South America and Africa. And basically, we went through this pandemic and people were so worried until there was something with which this could be treated. And therefore, many people went for those medicines or drugs which could increase their immunity until the vaccines came. Most people started shifting towards herbal-based medicine, which was very good for India because India has a huge share in the world global herbal medicine market. And in fact, in 2021, this market, global market, increased to $1.152 billion. It is projected to grow further because now in Delhi itself, I was reading day before yesterday that there are 10,000 cases of COVID-19 again. and people will again take to herbal medicine. Even now, it had come down a bit last year, but I'm sure it will increase again this year. And the projected growth is something like 166 billion US dollars in 2022, and by 2029 it will become 350 something like that billion dollars. And therefore, most of these people who are in this market should thank the global COVID-19 impact for increasing their production, productivity, and incomes very substantially. In fact, not only herbal drugs, but there is a huge increase in herbal ingredients in cosmetics. You are familiar of that in India because everybody is now, every major company is producing cosmetics completely based on herbal products. And in other, even larger, very big companies across the world are introducing or increasing the herbal component in their cosmetics. And therefore, there are great opportunities for developing countries, because I showed you in the last pie chart that the markets are the largest in developing countries in Asia Pacific, for example. And there's a great opportunity to expand business in our regions. And the major drivers that are expected to fuel this growth will be growing consumer awareness. Cosmetic companies wish to provide herbal alternatives, and a shift towards sustainable raw materials and opportunities for potential suppliers. Of the cosmetics, skin care is the most popular category, with a wide range of products using natural ingredients. And even big Hollywood stars like Rihanna produce these big brands, and many of these brands have increasingly larger components of herbal ingredients in the cosmetics. So this is another great area to which one should look at. You are all aware that the idea of plant-based vaccines is not new. People have been trying this out at the lab level with potatoes, rice, spinach, banana, corn, and so on and so forth for various diseases such as dengue, polio, malaria. But none of these actually reach the end stage of clinical trials. And basically, plants have a great ability to express proteins of various complexity and glycosylation patterns with very high efficiency. The first plant-based vaccine to be approved was against Newcastle disease, which is for poultry, by the USDA in 2006. And today, why people are still looking at this in spite of not being there so much of commercial products is because plant-based vaccines are supposed to have many advantages because they are more cost-effective, they have a high shelf life, they have a low probability of adverse effects, they have a sophisticated storage, which is not necessary for them at all, they can be handled very easily. They can be either administered orally or through intramuscular route. But in spite of all this, there are some challenges that are to be cleared and hurdles overcome. For example, selection of appropriate antigen and plant expression systems, maintenance of dosage consistency. For example, how many tomatoes should you eat before you become immune to a certain problem, for example? How many bananas should you import? What is that dosage? How do you control that dosage, etc.? These are areas that are being looked into. And also to ensure that good manufacturing practices are followed. However, the good news is that the first ever plant-based vaccine for COVID-19 was actually released for commercial use in Canada just this February 2022. And this was jointly developed by a Quebec-based company, Medicago Inc., and GlaxoSmithKline, And they used it, they produced this vaccine in the leaves of Nicotiana benthamiana, which is a fast-growing non-food plant. And this has been recommended for people aged between 18 and 64, and it's given through intramuscular route, and 2 doses, 21 days apart, are enough, and it has a 71% efficacy. And there are others that are now being looked at. These are some pictures from this company called, this company. And then in the vaccine is called Covifense. Now there are, following the success of this, there are many other plant-based vaccines in clinical trials right now. One for influenza, another one for COVID-19, a norovirus vaccine, and for, in fact, South Korea has invested nearly $14 billion in Pohang City to create a facility for producing plant-based vaccines against human diseases. And in the next years, the market for plant-based vaccines would rise from 40 million to $600 million. So go figure out how much potential is there in this area of enterprise. And I must also add to this that the land, with the increase in population, the land area available per capita keeps on decreasing. Look at how much area per capita is available in Brazil. I'm sorry. And compare this Brazil scenario with how much area an Indian has per capita land. And therefore, we cannot afford to have the same kind of agriculture anymore. We need to produce more crops from less land, less water, and less resources. And therefore, you cannot use or convert croplands for other purposes, for example, biofuels. You cannot use cropland for growing biofuels, at least in India. So there are lots of work going on. The first generation biofuels, which are food crops used as feedstock. The second generation would be waste from agriculture, for example, lignocellulosic waste like straw. You must have heard of Delhi's pollution being caused by fires lit in Haryana and Punjab of their agricultural straw and other things. The third generation would be to make your own designer feedstocks, algae and recombinant microbes. And finally, the fourth generation biofuels would be genetically optimized feedstocks designed to capture large quantities of carbon from the atmosphere. And India has something like 8,000 kilometers of coastline. Therefore, should we give up looking at, or at least also look at the sea as a possible area to grow biofuels instead of only growing them on land? So is algal biofuel the answer for our energy requirements? So many people are now started working in this area. So this is another great area to work on, plant-based biofuels based either on sea or on land. Now coming to other products from plants. Now people are aware that the leather industry is environmentally extremely harmful because the leachates that come out is highly polluting our river streams and our agricultural land and our soil, and it's tremendously harmful to people. And therefore, many people are now thinking of vegan leather, and this is gaining traction in the last few years. People try to use plant extracts and polyurethane or coated with plastic-based resin. And already products have come out on plant-based leather. Look at these shoes, for example. These are wallets, handbags, and all kinds of things. And the plants that are used are basically cereal crops such as corn, apple peel, pineapple leaves, and cactus called nopal cactus. and leftover flowers from temples. Now, this is very interesting. Look at Tirupati temple, for example. Tons and tons of flowers are used every day. And during special occasions like Brahmotsav and so on, several hundreds of tons of flowers are used. What happens to that one? It's a waste, basically. Can we make use of those flowers from our so many temples? We have, I think, billions of temples in this country. Can we convert them into leather or other useful products? So leather produced from flowers is called fleather. People have also used areca nut palm leaves, creamy flesh of coconut, etc. And that is called malai or cream. So most of these are partially biodegradable, which is a very good step. People have already produced bags, book jackets, shoes, wallets, and so on and so forth, including filigree rugs. And many of our film stars are already investing in this area as well. Having told you some of the opportunities, I want to show you some limitations in India. What are those barriers that are likely to impede innovation and discovery in these areas? Obviously, we must build on our manufacturing service strengths. We can make anything cheaper and faster and better. But this cost advantage will not last too long, because people will discover other countries, other areas, and they will get benefit of this thing. However, we must take very decisive steps towards discovery and innovation ourselves. And yet in doing so, we face several challenges. Lack of human quality resource, weak entrepreneurial skills, lagging public-private partnership, risk of inadequate venture angel capital, insufficient ignition grant system, need for streamlining regulatory processes, and so on. And the good thing is, in spite of these barriers, the government is now giving a lot of encouragement for bio partnerships with industry. One of the biggest barriers is the academia and the industry do not usually come together. So therefore, government has created many of these platforms to bring them together. The most famous one and the successful one is the one produced by DBT on Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, or BIRAC, which has supported now hundreds of such companies. And they have several grants that they can give people. There is this new Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative, the CSIR. There is the Technology Development Board of DST, also Pharma Fund of DST. Then people are trying to bring first-class people back to India, and so that they can train Indians in most frontline technologies, such as the Wellcome Trust and DBT collaboration, or DBT and Bill Gates Foundation partnership to support industry research. And there are many others that are now available. Also, there are people are making now active and very purposeful programs for connecting researchers and their domains and resources for innovation. And international collaborations are actually being now, India was one of the worst place for international collaboration so far. I don't have time to show you graphs. I have facts and figures that we are somewhere at the bottom of the global number of countries which do international collaborations. Even today, in fact, as late as 14th December 2021, there was a paper in Nature which had this heading: India, stop looking down on international collaboration. So those of you who are interested should go and read this. And we should do many more international collaborations, because you can't do everything by yourself. So finally, to sum up all this, I have spoken about what are the opportunities, what are our strengths, where are the barriers to success, and the outlook in spite of this would be good. I would end my lecture by giving you these 3 bullets here. There are, with regard to scientific vision and aspiration, which are very crucial. There are 3 types of countries. There are those which are science and technology leader nations. You know who they are. Then there are countries which have or which are in aggressive pursuit of science and innovation leadership. And there are countries which are uncertain or unable to look far ahead. Now, whether India wants to be in this category or in this category or in this category depends entirely on our scientific leadership, the right kind of policies at the right time, financial incentives and other incentives, and generation of big ideas by our scientific community. I do hope that we are currently somewhere, hopefully we are here, and we should soon join the Committee of Nations, which are science and technology leaders. So with that hope, I thank you all for listening to this talk. And I hope at least some of you are inspired to take up botanical entrepreneurship in so many areas that I have illustrated, and also many others which I have not illustrated. Thank you very much for your patience. Stop here.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor, for enlightening us and taking a national tour, I can say, based on your vast experience in various fields of botany-related entrepreneurship. You have talked about very recent technologies like CRISPR and ZFN, then precision agriculture, involvement of or the need of an hour, that is artificial intelligence, machine learning, communication domain, talking various aspects of biofuel to bio-leather industries. You have also given a thought about the glamorous world today. You have mentioned the personalities from Hollywood, Bollywood, why they are significant, and what market finally is available for all the young ones who are struggling a lot in today's world for getting something out of the very basic information of plants. As you have rightly pointed out and underlined, that basic knowledge will always be very important, and based on that, the applied aspects we can explore to based on our own assets, and so also the limitations. So much so you can enter and explore all the possible corridors that are available for us for individual growth and per se for the growth of the entire nation. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I think couple of questions with your kind permission, sir, from yes. So from the audience, if you have any question, please feel free to unmute yourself for a while and just ask a question, query, any expression. Meanwhile, before we start with this question, I can just jump on to various expressions from chat box. So people are very happy. The lecture is highly informative, excellent information with very state-of-art expression, presentation. People are very happy with these slides and presentation content that you have shared with us, sir. Is there any question from the audience? You can post your question in chat box also. Sir, people in general are very happy with the prospects for botanical sciences. As a student of botany, this lecture is very interesting and you have shared a lot of information. All the ideas that you have shared with us are very useful, especially for the beginners, very educative and superb information, brilliant analysis. In fact, a panoramic version that you have presented before us was appreciated by many of the people who are part of audience today.
Well, I'm very happy that people thought it was useful, but there are only two circumstances under which people don't ask any questions either. They didn't understand anything or didn't care for it. Or they understood everything and they have no questions. So whichever.
No, I think I can take it other way around, sir. Because this evening and in Pune, the climate change has started showing impact in the entire week. It is highly raining in the evenings.
No, I
So
was
I
only
think,
joking. So.
so I think that might be the reason. But overall, from the expressions, it is very clear that it has been very informative talk for everyone. And new avenues, I think you have opened us, and you have really taken the field of botany, which otherwise people claim that it is very traditional and very old science, but you have taken it to the platform which is talking today's language, somewhere in proteomics, genomics, and all omics are putting together based on your very vast experience, especially entrepreneurship development. And there are many ideas with which people are worried how to go ahead. So I think your session has
make
given.
a comment? May
Yes.
I make a comment? Actually,
Yes, sir.
I see somebody asking,
Yeah.
how easy is it for a student of botany to start off with a venture? I think that's a very interesting and important question. Suppose I am a student of botany. I just finished my MSc or PhD. Can I start a venture? How easy is it in this country? Of course, let me not say that anything is easy in this country. You have to really struggle for everything. It's not as easy as starting something in Silicon Valley, for example. One great thing that is important is, take, for example, the most common example is of medicinal plants. Now, every botanist thinks can produce a plant-based drug so easily. Every chemist thinks he can produce a drug from plants. Now, the truth is, a botanist himself or herself cannot produce any drug. You have to have a team. So basically, when I say botanical entrepreneurship, I mean, one of the part of your entrepreneurship is to actually collaborate with those who have knowledge which supports your knowledge. And therefore, today's collaborate or collapse. If you don't collaborate with people who have supplementary knowledge that strengthens your own, it's not going to be easy. So nobody can produce by themselves a plant-based drug, for example. You need pharmacologists, you need clinical clinicians, you need botanists, you need, if you're trying to bring an Ayurvedic material into modern system of medicine, you need specialists in Ayurveda, taxonomy. You must know people who go and collect plants from the field in different seasons, from different regions, and so on and so forth. Finally, you should do clinical trial, preclinical trials, and it's a huge process. I mean, in my entire span of some 20 years, when I started this whole group of medicinal and aromatic plants, my ambition was to put at least one plant-based medicine on the market And the nearest I reached was with a plant-based medicine for dengue fever. But then it didn't reach the market because finally so much on it, including clinical studies and everything. But takes so much time, so much patience. So one choose therefore some low-hanging fruits. For example, start with say biopesticides or biofertilizers. These are for something that will yield you quick results. Then slowly graduate and see where the markets are for you. What are you interested in? Get a few people across, and that's how I would go about it. And there are agencies in the government today, such as Vartak and so on, who will actually give you some grants even for proving that you have an idea that works. And those are very interesting developments in this country today.
Richa, madam.
So, I'm a student of first year BSc. I just want to ask you the question. The problem with science is that it is very hard to understand most of the time. And the research papers are so heavily worded, they're so jargon-filled, they barely evoke any sense of interest. It's hard for one to get through science. So what would you like to comment on it?
I would say that jargons are part of a very science or technology areas, unfortunately. But these days, there are so many beautiful books that are coming out in every area of science. Question is, if somebody is writing history of science, there are people who write such beautiful books. Recently, I saw a book that has just come out. It's called Elder Trees, Elder Flora. Now, this book talks about all the ancient trees of the world. And it is written so beautifully, free of jargon. There is a beautiful book that has come out recently on tree rings and how they change the world. And I was thinking, what a beautiful way of talking about annual growth rings in trees and how they affect climate, criminology, and dating of samples, archaeology, and so many areas, how much it impinges on. The problem is most scientists, unfortunately, cannot communicate well in a jargon-free language. And our syllabi have also been so, they're just not encouraging enough. I mean, why should we should take botany, zoology, and chemistry? Why can't I take history and botany and zoology? Or if I'm interested in archaeology and biology and, maybe economics. So there has to be a question of, this is not a simple question. It's a very complicated issue in education system itself. So how can we make students more, how do we draw more and more students into science? And this is not only India's problems. If you look at the US, if you look at UK, if you look at many European countries, all of them lament the fact that the brightest and the best students are not going for science education anymore. And it is much worse here. I showed you that slide. Deliberately, I put that slide about, this mass copying in Bihar. It's a very famous thing. You can find that one on the internet. And if that is our standards of education, all these big things that we talk about, what is the use of that? Right? So the question you asked was a simple one, but the answer to that question is extremely complicated. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Sir,
Yeah.
can I talk? Hello.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. Natesh, sir, your presentation is very, very suitable under the new education policy. And whatever you have suggested today will be very, very useful for any student who is opting for botany as one of the subjects. And the second, what you said just now, that in the new education policy, a student of botany will be able to take economics or biology or science. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I think your presentation was very good and very useful. And we should recommend your name everywhere.
No, I'm sure other people would have thought about this. Basically, you know, it was supposed to happen in Delhi University about 10-15 years ago. But
Yes.
most opposition, I'm told, came from the teaching community, not
Yes.
students community. So,
Yes, sir.
you know, there has to be a reform at every level.
Yes, sir.
And as I said, I gave you that example of a comedian. A good teacher is not necessarily one. Of course, he should be very good, or he or she should be very good in his domain knowledge. But
Yes.
how you deliver that domain knowledge to your students? Is it your job to tell everything that you know or regurgitate all that you know? Or you put it in a way that your student has to go and explore, or it broadens his horizon or her horizon to explore that frontier further? So these are basic questions that we need to look at, examine ourselves. Now there are these ICERs and so on, which are now coming up with these integrated degrees. And I think I attended some, what do they call them? These workshops for those students in Pune itself some years ago. And I was told that the entry level, all over from Maharashtra, they had invited some school students. The cutoff entry point for attending those workshops was something like 97% or something. I was thinking, my God, I'm so inferior to speak before these students. Because there are very intelligent students these days. Teaching is also not easy, because in our times, our teachers did not have internet and so on. Today, if I don't give you a good talk, you don't have to waste your time in my class. You can go to the internet or somewhere else and learn something, So teaching has also become very challenging.
Yes, sir.
Become also very challenging, because there is so much information out there that you don't know which one is useful, which is not useful, which one is actually authentic knowledge, which is not even verified knowledge. So that is why still a teacher is very relevant in a classroom.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ajit sir.
On behalf of Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhini, we are thankful to Professor Natesh sir for sparing his very busy schedule to give this 22nd Dr. V.D. Vartak Memorial Lecture. We are also thankful to very senior botanist, Dr. Lattu sir, Dr. Hema Sane madam, Dr. Vinaya Ghate madam, Pense sir, Ghanekar sir, and so many teachers from different colleges and universities, as well as students, they were present for today's lecture. So Maharashtra Vriksha Samvardhani is thankful to all of them. Our next program, that is, I think they already announced that on coming Monday, that is on 24th, we have got a lecture on grasses. And on 29th, we have got a lecture related with philately, stems on amphibians. So these two lectures will be there in this month program. And this lecture of Natesh sir will be available on our YouTube channel. So you can visit our YouTube channel, Mission Devrai. Along with this lecture, we have already about 150 lectures from different topics and different subjects, which will be beneficial to students as well as staff members. So you can visit our YouTube channel, Mission Devrai. Those who want to ask still more any questions to Natesh sir, so they can send their questions to our on our email ID, missiondevrai@gmail.com. Then we can forward them to Natesh sir and we'll come back to you with their answers. I think with this, we can conclude today's session. अजून काय सांगायचं?
नाही, missiondevrai@gmail.com.
एक minute, फक्त one more thing I forgot actually. Today the book which was released by Natesh sir,
ते मी एकदा परत
हा ते दाखवायला, and publisher Mr. Singhal, he is also present there. So we are also thankful to him for attending the function, and you can see the book and where it is available. So you can take down these phone numbers where you can contact Mr. Manish and you can get the information about the book. Thank you very much, Natesh sir.
From my side, I am very grateful to all of you for giving me this opportunity, and I regret that we couldn't do this, in a physical meeting. But otherwise, thank you for your patience, and very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Sir, next time when you come back to it, we are definitely going to arrange, because we have already 2 lectures given by you in our organization.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank
Chat
you.
box मध्ये मी missiondevarai@gmail.com एकदा type करते. Those who want to contact us for further programs, they can just send the mail to missiondevarai@gmail.com. ये मेल आईडी पे आप मेल करेंगे तो आपको फर्दर प्रोग्राम्स के मेल्स मिलेंगे. थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक यू नटेश सर.
Thank you once again.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, madam.
Thanks a lot. Good night. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು.
That's very nice. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ನಿಮಗೂ. Hi.
Yeah, hi. अजित सर मीटिंग बंद करू?
हो चालेल.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.